Morning. I'd like to invite the young or the young at heart up for a story. Hey guys. So as you may have heard, this month's worship theme is transformation. Can you think, very exciting, can you think of a word that means transformation but is much shorter? Interesting. That is a kind of transformation. Jack? Change, yeah. So the story today is about a cat who is faced with a change. Some changes are hard, aren't they? Some changes are physical. They happen in our bodies. Some changes are mental and they happen in our mind. And some changes are emotional and happen in our hearts. Let's see if we can figure out what kinds of changes are happening to the star of our story, this cat. Doesn't have a name. Maybe in class we'll think of a good name. Let's hear the story first. It's called Windows with Birds. You see that picture sitting on that table? This was the house that had windows with birds, 26 stairs, 29 hiding places, and one foolish mouse in the basement. This is the boy I pounced on when he was quiet. He filled my water dish, scratched me in just the right places, and had friends I liked to play with. I waited in a sunny spot for him to come home. The boy zipped me into his jacket and brought me here. What does that look like to you? It's not the attic. Anybody else? Yeah, you see the moving box? Yeah, does this look like the house they lived in? The cat moved. Now I shrink behind the couch and stare. He brings me my water dish. I am deep in a laundry basket and won't come out even when he calls. He tries treats. I stay undetected behind boxes, invisible up inside a box spring, missing in the misery of a closet. Meow, I wail, but he won't take me back to the old house. He tries a mouse with a feather tail. It smells of glue and dry grass. In the dark hours, I chew it up and leave it in a shoe. The boy stops looking. He's quiet. His mom stays with him until he sleeps. Meow. In the dark hours, I curl up when he stops tossing and turning. This morning, there were birds. I chase from window to window, up and down the furniture, to ambush them in flight. I prowl along the sill and hunt for where the boy has moved my water dish. This is the home that has windows with birds, 5 perfect hiding spaces, a promising new fish, and the boy. I wait in a sunny spot for him to come home. So, thinking about that story, what kind of change happened to the cat? Yeah, there was a moving change. So that was a physical change, right? His body is in a different place now. Is there another kind of change that happened? Yeah, Lily? He slept in the hamper. That's a new sleeping spot, maybe. Braden. He had a mental change. Do you want to explain? How did he feel about the move at first? Terrible. Terrible. And how did he feel eventually? Yeah, there were birds again. You can be happy again after a hard change, can't you? Yeah. Change can be hard, can't it? There are birds in the windows. Let's grab coats and go to class.
Good morning. It's really nice to be back here. This morning's reading is from The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. A beggar had been sitting by the side of the road for 30 years. One day a stranger walked by. "Spare some change," mumbled the beggar. "I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. And then he asked, "What's that you're sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar, "just an old box. I've been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "Ever look inside?" asked the stranger. "No," said the beggar. "What's the point? There's nothing in there." "Have a look inside," insisted the stranger. The beggar, reluctantly, managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw that the box was filled with gold. "I am that stranger who has nothing to give you, and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside any box, as in the parable, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself." The words of Eckhart Tolle.
A season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. Everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time that you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Thank you for that music. So I want to talk to you about spirituality. And I think the first thing we need to do is define our terms. When I initially began writing sermons, my mentor and my minister, Reverend Peter Friedrichs, said that what you don't want to do is open your presentation with a definition from the dictionary. So the first thing I'd like to do is open with a definition from the dictionary. This being the, 21st century, I didn't go to just any dictionary. I went to dictionary.com, which bills itself as the most visited, most trusted online dictionary in the world. Their mission, and this is taken directly from their website, is to delight and inspire anyone using the English language by being the most innovative and comprehensive digital source for everything related to words. And you thought your mission statement was good. They even have a picture on their homepage of the real live people who work for dictionary.com. Take it from me, they're young, they're hip, they wouldn't steer me wrong. So on dictionary.com, I looked up the word spirituality, and here is what I found. The quality or fact of being spiritual. Don't you hate when that happens? So I looked up the word spiritual, and dictionary.com told me that it is of, pertaining to, or consisting of spirit. I turned back to the picture of my friends at dictionary.com, and I said, "What are you doing to me? You are the most innovative and comprehensive digital source for everything related to words. You are supposed to delight and inspire me and everyone else using the English language. I am not delighted nor inspired." Undaunted, though, I persevered. I looked up the word spirit and found this: the incorporeal part of humans. Now, when I got to incorporeal, I realized that I probably needed to start a new spiritual journey in my efforts to find a definition of spirituality. Nevertheless, I decided to try one more time, and I looked up incorporeal and read not corporeal. So Reverend Peter was right. Never start a sermon with a definition from the dictionary. So I decided instead to ask Unitarian Universalists for their definition of the word spirituality without using the word incorporeal, and this is a sampling of what I heard. That which gives meaning to my life, a relationship with a higher power, being open to life, awareness of a meaningful connection with the sacred whole, commingling of the self with something greater, and my personal favorite, an awareness of the gap between what you can experience and what you can describe. Now, don't ponder that too much, because then you won't listen to the rest of my sermon, but that's kind of interesting. When one reflects on this sampling of definitions of spirituality, two things come to the surface. One, there are many different understandings and interpretations of what the word spirituality means. And two, all of these definitions are internally focused. Like the fable that I read this morning, they compel one to look inside themselves. They cannot be evidenced by any external means. One cannot see a person being spiritual in the context of these definitions. These are definitions representative of what I see and hear all the time from Unitarian Universalists. And they are intensely personal, highly abstract, and in no way contribute to the creation or continuation of successful, vital, strong, and growing congregations. Permit me to elaborate. As an adjunct employee of the Unitarian Universalist Association, whose portfolio includes the growth of congregations in the many ways in which we define growth, I look at spirituality in a different way. I want to point to something that someone is doing and say that is evidence of their spirituality. I want to ask, does one's spirituality leave its mark on the congregation, on the world? My point is this: if we can't define spirituality or agree on it, if we can't see the evidence of spirituality, and contributing to strong, vital, and growing congregations, then what is its usefulness? So in an effort to define spirituality in a way that makes sense in the context of contributing to strong, vital, and growing congregations, I want to start by looking at what I believe are the components of spirituality, the three elements related to the concept of being a spiritual person. The first is emotions, the second is beliefs, and the third is evidence. Our spiritual side begins with the display of emotions. Those emotions are embodied in our beliefs, and the way in which we conduct ourselves is evidence of our emotions and beliefs. So stay with me here. First, emotions. Authentic spirituality invokes an emotional response. It is impossible to think of spirituality without including emotion. And that can include feelings of awe, wonder, significance, joy, confusion, contentment, sadness, regret. And part of being spiritual is recognizing, being conscious of one's emotions at any given time. It is also important to note that these emotions are positive, even regret and sadness, in that they assist us in better understanding who we are and how we relate to the world. George Valiant, professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, suggests that spirituality is all about positive emotions, including love, hope, joy, forgiveness, compassion, trust, and gratitude. The second element of spirituality is beliefs, how we see the world, what we believe to be true and right in our own conduct and in the conduct of others. By focusing on what we believe, we elicit the positive emotions that I spoke about earlier. But the relationship between beliefs and emotions is reciprocal. When we experience positive emotions, it affirms, it reinforces the beliefs that we hold. So we live according to our beliefs, and this in turn elicits positive emotions. Thus, we cannot easily separate what we believe from how we feel about what we believe. For example, and I think you probably need one right about now, I hold the belief that all people have good intentions, and that if I can just get past the surface, I will see in people things that surprise and delight me. That's my belief. And so believing this, I work hard to get to know people on a deeper level, and I find things that surprise and delight me. When I do, it elicits positive emotions that in turn reinforce my belief that if I can just get past the surface, I will see in people things that delight and surprise me. We act on our beliefs. They elicit positive emotions. These positive emotions in turn reinforce our beliefs. So, as Unitarian Universalists, what are our beliefs? Well, here's my answer, and I'll give you a hint. It starts with the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and there are 7 of them. Our core UU principles define and represent our belief system as Unitarian Universalists. It's the closest thing that we have to a creed. So, spirituality, as I have outlined it so far, is living our UU principles or beliefs in a manner that evokes positive emotions and then drawing on those positive emotions to affirm or recommit ourselves to our principles. I experience joy and wonder and exultation and significance through living our principles, and in so doing, I am more committed to living our principles. So we've covered emotions and beliefs as 2 components in the definition of spirituality. The only element that is missing is evidence. How do I know that I am being spiritual? How do others know? What is the evidence of my spirituality in ways that make a difference in the world? Is spirituality an internal, personal thing? Or must spirituality impact in some fashion to change or otherwise affect the life of another? Or to put it another way, if a spiritual person falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, do they make a sound? Okay, that's kind of silly and not exactly right. How about this? If a person is spiritual and no one is impacted by it, does it matter? And is that how we want our congregations to run? Now, I don't want you to get your back up, especially you, my friend. No, I'm just kidding. I know that spirituality includes internal actions like yoga and meditation and tai chi and drumming and praying. I know that these are legitimate and important ways to reflect, means to becoming a more thoughtful, contemplative, and compassionate human being. I get that. But I believe that spirituality needs to be more outward focused. I believe that we live out our spirituality through our relationships with others, through being thoroughly and totally committed to our 7 principles. In an address delivered before the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis at its regular Sunday morning meeting on April 14th, 1929, the minister John Dietrich said, "The spiritual life is attained not by putting on a whole lot of artificial pieties, but by fulfilling to the uttermost the ordinary commonplace virtues of daily life. To be spiritual is simply to be nobly human. It is to be sincere, honest, reverent, high-minded, just, and noble in all our dealings. For the very essence of spirituality is integrity, honesty, and sincerity." So where is the evidence of spirituality in this context of connection with others, being outwardly focused? It is in our sacred and empathic listening to each other, in our loving expressions of gratitude to each other, in our work as governors and coffee makers and greeters and teachers, congregation meeting attendees and banner carriers. The evidence of a spiritual life is all around us. It is within these walls and it is beyond these walls. It is attending to the work of our beloved congregation and our Unitarian Universalist faith. So, taking the 3 elements of spirituality, positive emotions, beliefs, and evidence, here is my definition of spirituality as it relates to the growth of our congregations. Spirituality is a daily devotion to living our principles authentically and intentionally. Doing so evokes the positive emotions that affirm the beliefs we hold, and those emotions in turn reinforce our commitment to living our principles. Let me be clear. The congregational member who attends Sunday worship 2 or 3 times a month and perhaps takes a yoga class now and then does not meet this definition. In my definition of spirituality, there must be connection with others and the practice of impacting in some way on the lives of fellow congregants or those who live beyond the walls of this congregation. One of our much-loved former members of my congregation, the Reverend Elizabeth Ellis, wrote, "Contemplation, prayer, meditation, and discipline can enhance the spiritual life, but can also lead to an elitist position by removing us from the human struggle. Or spiritual life can bring us into touch with the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part." So, if you agree with this definition, or even if you don't agree, but are willing to concede its relevance to the health of your congregation, What do you do about it? How do you adopt this form of spirituality and use it to help realize your dreams as a congregation and as a faith? Well, as you probably guessed, I have a few suggestions. 1, reflect on this sermon. You can even have a copy of it. Let me know and I'll send it to you. And ask others in the congregation to read and contemplate it. Then get together in small group ministry or neighborhood groups or backyard barbecue groups or whatever your thing may be, and talk about it. 2, be a role model in this congregation for living your beliefs and our principles authentically and intentionally. Talk with others about what you are doing as a member of this faith tradition and the positive emotions it elicits. And 3, notice when others in the congregation are doing the same and offer praise and thanks for doing so. The congregational member who listens with compassion to another's sorrows, who extends themselves to welcome the stranger, who makes and lovingly serves coffee to us after the service, who gets to church early in order to set up the chairs for the Sunday worship service. These people all are living definitions of spirituality, and we should acknowledge and thank them for sharing their spiritual selves. These actions, then, these demonstrations of spirituality, are the ways in which we create a rising tide, in which we lift all boats, in which we create a congregation that is proud and strong and moving forward boldly into the future. May it be so.